Probably colder in here than it is outside, to be honest. I don't know.
You guys left last night. I'm up like 75.
I saw somebody outside wearing shorts, and I'm still amazed.
That's funny.
I was wondering why I had it.
I don't mind brisk cold wind and snow. I never want to see it.
I don't mind the
need
snow
both.
to like have a day or two of it. That's the extent of it. I don't want to go out in it.
I don't like it at all.
I'm done. Some 20 years ago, I was done with the snow.
It's too much.
We're live, Jared, we're ready. Whatever.
And we're back. Welcome to another episode of Name That Tune. No, dad joke didn't land. Dad joke didn't land so well, huh? All right, so it's 4 o'clock, which means it's question and answer time. So hopefully we have more questions today. I don't know if we'll have more answers, but here we go.
We will see.
So Natalie, what we'll do questions first of all, and then we'll do some what did you learns after.
I love those.
Yeah.
What did you learn?
What did you learn?
They need to type their answers in too.
First question.
Seriously, the design.
Yeah,
They should type it in her.
we could tell them that.
Well, you have a mic and they can hear you. So
Give me one of the mics. Stop talking. You two should have
Man, just put your foot down, why don't you?
It's a long day.
So messing
All right,
around.
you guys hear me?
the question is, can you hear you?
Okay. All right, Jared, the first question is, with the quadrant/funnel
Yeah.
that is due today,
Yep.
am I filling it out with my objectives, commitments, tasks, and time, or the company's definition that was given yesterday?
Yeah, so it should be a combination of both. I mean, because the companies are the beginning building blocks of what you should be doing in the future. So the quadrant is like everything else that we're working on, it's a building block. So we give you, we show you, and then it's your job to take that tool and start utilizing it. So putting our information into it would be the right first thing to do. And then as we're going through this on a daily basis, I kind of threw out a couple objectives as we went through and said, hey, this is kind of some deadlines. It's your job to then start putting them in and making sure that that's showing up on your overall objective quadrant and 15-day plan as you're looking at your goals. So it should be a combination of both. What I'm going to tell you is this. When it comes to the tools that we're teaching you to use, I use this analogy of giving you the opportunity to build a tree, or I'm sorry, dig and plant a tree, right? So there's a couple of different ways. I'm going to give you the tree and say, hey, this is what we need to, this is what we want that tree to look like at the end. But you're going to have to go dig the hole. And there's a bunch of tools that I'm going to lay in the yard. Some of them are shovels and pickaxes and post hole diggers and maybe a mini excavator or whatever else. It's up to you to not use your fingers, right, to go dig the hole and claw to get to what you want. So my point being is that we're going to show you the tools. If you have questions about how to use the tools, that's kind of what this should be about is, I maybe don't understand the philosophy behind the quadrant, which I would hope at this point you understand. But really it's about you taking the tools and taking ownership of them and starting to implement them into everything that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So yes, long answer, short answer, long, whatever you want to call it. You should have the company's objectives and commitments and tasks and time in there, but then you should also be utilizing that to start building your own. Which again, I go back to John, I'm sorry, not John, Tommy, when he said, I go back to Tommy when he said yesterday, right? It's like, well, he doesn't know much about kitchens. Well, David may know a bunch of stuff about kitchens. He may not need to do a bunch of extra work and have goals of understanding more about kitchens. Well, that's an objective that you need to have, and you need to understand the commitment necessary or the why, and then you need to go, hey, what's the deadline? Well, I would think that the time that I would want to have that as I'm solid and mastering it is going to be before I have to go run a bunch of appointments with people. So that's how you start utilizing this tool. So anyways, that would be my answer for the quadrant exercise. The biggest thing that I'll tell you that I'm paying attention to and will be paying attention to is the script. Because that is the hardest thing if you haven't figured out yet. That's the toughest thing that you got to make sure that you got figured out. But as for the quadrant, if you use the quadrant after today or not, look, I'm a busy person. I don't have time to freaking babysit you. You're grown ass people. You know, use the tools the way that you will use them. And if you don't understand some of the methodology, then I'm more than happy to answer the questions. But they're your tools. Use them. They work for me. So if you have a better way of getting to success, then I'm all ears because I like being around smart people. So I don't know if you guys have any other answers to that, but.
Wouldn't add a thing.
Okay.
All right. Next question. When it comes to memorizing the script, what does that mean? Do I have to have it word for word memorized, or the main points and topics like cliche contractors, solution, vested interest, etc.?
Yeah, so
You want to answer?
I'm going to let Jeffrey answer that one.
Word for word. Okay? It will, you don't see it now, but man, if you ever struggle in a house, if you ever get lost, the customer needs to hear this to be successful. Right? And your interpretation, if we wanted to use your interpretation, we wouldn't have developed this. Right? So it'll save you. And it'll convey the information that is absolutely necessary to make that customer feel comfortable to buy a kitchen and have that dream. You screw around, I can promise you, you will not be successful selling kitchens if you don't follow that. I can't promise you will. But I can definitely promise you won't if you don't follow the process. That's a promise.
Yeah, I would tell you the amount of time and energy that's gone into what it is that's been created is a reason why you should trust it. It's not something where like any one person sat down and said, hey, you know what, like this is how I feel I would like to approach the home. It's actually taken several different people to talk through it, to wrestle with it, to say, hey, this is what we're showing the customer from a visual stimulant. What are the things that we want them to be left with? And if you're paying attention earlier, I talked about the elevator pitch, which is what? And I didn't just give it to you, I also broke it down based on the stimulants, which is custom. That word means something. It means one of a kind. Transform, it means magic. And what you don't understand if you've never been in sales or really wrestled with the psychology and sociology of the sales approach is that when you say something, an image instantly connects with the person's mind. And so that's the part that you have to kind of understand is, are there other words that you could say and still get some sort of result? Yeah, probably. I'm not saying that we're the smartest people in the entire world, but I want you to understand that we've spent a lot of time putting together the collaboration of the visual and the verbal so that we can stimulate the customer in a certain way so that you get the value that you're looking for when it comes to leveraging that at the end, when the customer is going to be panicking, going, oh my gosh, now's the time that I have the opportunity to get exactly what I want, and I'm terrified to do that because this is way too easy, and all my defense mechanisms are coming up going, I don't know if I can do it, right? And so, look, again, I would go back to, I'm not going to sit there in the house. Tommy and I had this conversation. I'm not going to sit there in the house and watch to make sure that you do every single word. I don't have to because I'll see it in the results, right? And the best way that I can help you be successful is to provide you the strategies and provide you the opportunities based on the things that we've, learned through hard knocks in a lot of respects. And if you want to go through those hard knocks on your own, then that's fine too. You'll if you're the type of person that wants to succeed, you'll succeed, right? I would just tell you it's a lot easier not to have to do that. So that would be my point.
I got one thing I want to add, and I think it's this way in the presentation. When you're at the vested interest, the nuances that we've worked on, you won't know for a long time, like the psychological aspects. I think the script says, let's pretend you spend $30,000 with another contractor. Those words, let's pretend, are super critical. And you wouldn't know that if we didn't tell you. Because if you look at a customer and say, hey, you spent $30,000, what do you mean I'm spent $30,000? If you say the words, let's pretend, they're relaxed. Now, but it's really subliminal, right? It's an embedded command. That's really what it is, right? You're telling them Well, say you spent 30. They're not going to react to that. They're like, oh, let's pretend. All right. And you won't know that if you think you could just do your words. And it's just, you'll never know. It'll take you a while to understand that. But the thought he's smiling because he knows that's.
Well, it's not like
Hold on, you need a mic. Hold on, you need a mic. There you go.
Well, it's not like these customers buy kitchens every day like they buy candy bars, right? So words like that are important because you can't price condition right out of the gates like that, and their defense mechanism is up immediately. So that's why it's important, and we've gone through this painstaking process to make it easy for you guys, easier, relatable.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have a camera, but we haven't talked about price conditioning too much. I think that's been mentioned a couple times, but we haven't had a focus of it. But I think, as you guys start looking through the presentation more even, you'll see that there are big numbers on the screen, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. That's all, like Jeff's saying, a part of that price conditioning, of getting them used to these numbers visually, to then, when in the end, when you say, hey, this is going to be $25,000, they're not shocked because they've been seeing $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on the presentation. Yep. It's all in there, and as you guys start seeing even the material that we've been giving you a little bit more, you're going to start realizing that. And it's those little things, like Jeff's saying, the let's pretend, the here's these national averages, all of those things that are really, really important for the entire outcome of the sale. All right.
Hold on, let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
I also want you to understand that it's not just about the script. It's actually about how do you deal with intense challenges. Learning that script is intense. It is. And if you're the type of person that can't push through all the things that are coming in, right? All the challenges, all the adversity that script provides you, if you don't have the ability to push through that, then you'll never be able to push through when a customer goes, no, I need to think about it. I need to get other estimates. I'll call you back. You'll never be able to fight through that. Because what happens is that's what you have to really fight through. And it's not about pressuring the customer to make the decision. It's really about being able to control your own mentality of going, this is a loser, I'm done. And going, no. All the signs are saying this isn't going to happen, but I'm here to continue to focus on why, because of the things that the person has told me up to this point. All those things equals there is a problem and this customer needs a solution. And I'm going to be able to sit here and deal with my own mentality to be able to make sure that I have the tenacity necessary to sit here and help that customer. And so that's really what it's about. It's not about the script. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's about what do you do when you're given an objective, a goal that's challenging? How do you accomplish it? Can you accomplish it? And that's why I put a hard, fast date and time on it. If you can't, then get out. Because we're a fast growth business, meaning we are accomplish-oriented people. And so for us to get where we want to go, we have to surround ourselves with people that also want to accomplish things. Now look, we sometimes fall short, and that's okay, because the one thing that we never do is we never fail, because we always learn. We reboot, we audible, and then we attack again. But one thing we never do is we never quit. And so that's the part where this will test you. Will you quit? Will you be able to accomplish it? There's an objective that's very difficult. Do you have the grit to make it happen? If you don't, then you're not worth being on my team, and I'm not going to spend my time with you. I already told you what my time is worth. I value it most of all. I like spending time with winners. I like spending time with people that want to accomplish something. More importantly, I want to spend time with people that want to become more than what they are today. And so that's what the script is all about. Next question.
All right, next question is, when it comes to measuring, do we do each step left to right and then come back, or do we measure each wall and cabinet as we move left to right?
That's a great question. I'm going to leave that to Mr. Stahl. He needs a mic, though. So the reason I leave that to Mr. Stahl is because Andrew knows more than anybody how to systematically have success. And so he's tried it a bunch of different ways. He's seen people try it different ways. And look, one of the things, you may think the script is challenging right now. Measuring and pricing is fairly challenging. There's a lot of different things that are internal, meaning things that you're dealing with as you're going through that, but there's also a lot of external things. And so the reason why we are structural with that is so that you don't miss, because it's very easy to make mistakes and miss. And we don't, I repeated this earlier, let me repeat it again. We don't want to not be able to pay you your commission. Like, I want all the people that work for me to make a freaking shit ton of money. But in order to do that, you have to be able to be right on the certain things. And so measuring and pricing is one of those things.
Systematic. And you've got a lot of different things going on in that house, in your own head, right? You got the customer, you don't want to lose the customer. You got you're unsure of something. That occurred with the customer. How you going to close? You see the price starting from the beginning when you walk in the house. You know, you're worried you're going to sell from your own pocketbook. Drop a huge price tag. A lot of things going on in your head. Systematically, doing everything at once is best. Because if you get thrown off here or there, the customer or whatever, you always go back. Say you were at door 6, you know there's more than 6 doors. So number all your doors. You'll go on to 7, right? And then do the next thing. Go all the way through. That's the best way to do it. And then get down to your accessories or different things like that, your one-offs.
Yeah, so like Andrew's saying, I would always suggest going left to right.
Yeah, left to right.
Right?
Didn't clarify that.
And finish everything that you can walls, and then go left to right with bases. And then finish everything with bases, right? That's really the way to do it. So when you're counting up doors, for example, this is what we were kind of talking through is, you know, you're now going to number your doors. Well, number your doors left to right, walls, right? Walls left to right, number all of them, and then come back to do your overall dimensions and go left to right and do them walls all again. So that way you're focused on one, and that's why it's broken up the way that it is, right? It's like number the doors, right? Number wall doors, number base doors. You're working left to right, and then you're going back left to right. And that what you'll find by doing that a lot of times is that any mistakes that you did make on the prior cluster of things that you were working on, like numbering doors or overall dimensions, you'll find, oh crap, I forgot to label that alteration. Glad I did that. So that's the way that I teach measure text as well, is to go left to right for the type of information that you're looking for, and then go left to right for the type of information that you're looking for, and then go left to right over and over and over again. Yep. And this is coming from a contractor that's used a tape measure for almost 20 some years now. I know how to measure things, but it's the system that I follow when I'm measuring a kitchen, because I don't want to go from measuring door widths and heights and then overalls and all these different things, right? I want to make sure that I'm just numbering everything and I stay focused on that. Then I want to get my overall dimensions. I want to stay focused on the walls. I don't bounce from walls to bases or anything like that. So that's the systematic approach, is continues to work left to right with the batched type of information that you're looking for.
And then once you actually do it consistent. Mm-hmm. So don't measure height and width on some just because it's easier to get to. Always go width by height and do it the same every time. So you're consistent, and the way you're
we didn't
measuring
we
and
didn't talk
pricing.
height because we're talking salespeople, but whatever. Sorry, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let's talk opening.
Yeah. Width, linear, but linear is flat. But yeah, just do everything consistently.
Yep.
And just like with the script, I mean, if you're not consistent, you're never going to know where you're off.
Yeah, that's a great point. Leon got to ride along with Sebastian. Sebastian sold over $2 million at this point in his career with us. But I always remember when he first came in, he was 18, 19 years old, and he came to me one day, and we'd meet. This was several years ago now. We would meet, every week or whatever. And he came in and was like, "Oh man, I've been reading some great books." I'm like, "Okay, well, what are you reading?" "Well, I'm reading these sales books." I'm like, "Okay, awesome." And he's like, "Well, I've been trying some of these sales strategies in the home." And I said, "Well, that's awesome, except how do you know if customer A actually lines up with strategy A?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't really think about that." I said, "Well, yeah, that's part of the problem, right? Is that it's going to take you a long time to get enough sampling, and you're going to have to make sure you're identifying customer A and strategy A, and those align. But if you've got A and strategy C, and then you go to the next customer, and that's a B, and you're trying strategy D, like you're never going to be able to prove your theory." And so the point of that is not to get in depth in the analytical aspect of selling, but just to understand that there's a reason that there's process and there's systems, is because it hopefully, if it's a good process and a good system, it's taking the aggregate of the data, right? It's taking the aggregate of the customer. These are the types of customers. It's going to appeal to the vast majority of customers, not all customers, but the vast majority. So those are just things to kind of, again, going back to systems and processes, that's something to really kind of think on.
Well, that's how you identify a customer, by the...
Well, we talked through that already today.
Yeah.
So, next question.
All right,
there's
next
data.
question. What is the benefit of setting the pace for the customer, of deciding between option A or option B throughout the appointment?
Say that one more time. What is the
benefit of setting the pace for the customer, of deciding between option A or option B throughout the appointment?
Well, yeah, so one of the things that you'll understand about the customer, and I'll go to Jeff after this, is that you're going to come in contact with a variety of different types of customers when it comes to knowledge base about kitchens. And the truth is that very few percentage of them are really actually educated as to what it takes. And so even the ones that are aggressive in their knowledge, right? You come in contact with some type A personalities, they're like, "Oh, I know exactly what I want." In fact, there's a funny story. One of the regional services managers at Home Depot did exactly that. She had a Home Depot employee, had a Home Depot makeover designer in her house, and then she said, "I know exactly what I want. I work for Home Depot, blah, 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 blah." And she tells the story that she ended up buying, but it was completely opposite of anything that she thought, right? And she's like, "You know what? I was kind of an arrogant, SOB, and it kind of bit me in the backside." And so my point being is that the point of, in step 2, starting to guide that customer generally towards a direction of north for that customer is really important when it comes to step number 4, so that they can have the actual sense of accomplishment needed in order for them to go, "This is my kitchen," right? "This is my kitchen, and now I want it." If you just simply went to step 4 and you just started pulling out door samples, what you're going to find is that customer is going to be all over the place, going, "Oh my gosh, you know what? I'm going to need 4 different design prices." And look, they will take you there, and you'll end up pricing the job 4 different ways. And you know how many sales you're going to get out of that? 0. Because if you have 2 designs, and this is important, write this down. If you ever price 2 designs, you will end up with 0 commitment. It doesn't mean that you can't rework a primary design, but you can never present 2 prices for 2 different options, because the customer has 0 ability to make the decision.
Sometimes they'll set you up for that. Right? Well, just price it both ways. What do they think? You're going to say no? Man, I say, look, Mr. Jones, for the amount of money this costs, you have to love it. Which one do you like better? And that's it. Oh, and that's it. And make it, there's no choice. They get overwhelmed. The more stuff you show them, they get overwhelmed. As would we. You show that chip sample that has, 600 different stains. I had people literally say, I gotta go take a nap. I gotta lie down. Because they just can't do it. And again, if you start that early enough, the aggressive ones typically don't know what they want. They just want to kind of stick their chest out a little. And,
Well, they're
right?
afraid.
'Cause, yeah, you're the enemy, right? Meanwhile, they don't trust themselves because they invited you into their home, right? The more resistance you get, the more they're afraid of buying. A disinterested person would not object to anything. They just wouldn't. So you got to kind of take it like that and help them understand that they're being a little bit silly. Right? You made a comment that yesterday. And you do that just by asking questions. Look, I mean, you eat in here too, right, Mr. Jones? I mean, you guys spend some time in here, right? What color would you like to see? Wood grain, like a wood grain, like a solid. Back in the day, we had 6 samples or 8 samples. Customer said, well, I said it comes in white, or the other white. And that's not serious. I'm not kidding. That's
He's
how we sold
100%
it.
serious, absolutely.
That's how we sold it. Comes in white. Right? Nice, clean. You sell a house, no one's going to bother you. So, you ready? All right.
No, I would tell you this: when you're thinking of the flow through the 10 steps, it's kind of like pouring a glass of water for the customer, and that you're controlling the faucet. You can absolutely crank that thing up, and that water will overflow, and they'll be overwhelmed trying to keep it from getting all over the floor. Or you can take it at a nice pace where you pour them a nice, consistent glass that they're going, okay, yeah, I can drink this, I can digest it, I'm good, right? And we haven't gotten into this because it's only day 2, but there's advantages and there's times to actually utilize either ability in the home when it comes to controlling that faucet. But yeah, the real goal is to make sure that you're able to help that person along their journey from what we call an informative guide role. Which is, look, if I'm gonna go hike the Himalayas, like that would be cool, but I'd also be terrified if I didn't have somebody that could guide me through that, right? So being able to make sure that you have someone that's able to guide you, that's what you're trying to put yourself in position in step 1 and 2, is so that when that customer gets farther and farther into making more difficult decisions, there's a trust that's been developed based on repeat behaviors. And so that's why we start to point them in the direction at the very beginning. So,
Position you as the expert. And if you're positioned as the expert and you control this, I'm not saying forcefully, but look, it's your demo and we know better than they do. So if you have a problem with control, don't, because you're really servicing them. But they'll start saying things like, well, what do you think? What do you think that goes with? Because they'll start to trust you.
Correct.
And that's how you'll be able to get them through feeling silly or not understanding or being afraid. You'll talk them off the ledge, man.
All right. Our next questions are similar, but a little bit different. I would be interested to see if any of you guys in the room know. Anyone in the chat, if you have the answer as well, you can put it in there if you want. But first, the first question is, for our task, memorize the intent of the Prezi slides we went over today. Is that for the whole presentation or what we went over today?
Might have been a dumb question.
Anyone want to answer?
say that one more time.
For our task, memorize the intent of the Prezi slides that we went over today. Record yourself explaining the intent of each one. Is that for the whole presentation or what we went over today?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's the whole presentation, right? Because what we've been doing is chopping it up. So yesterday we did a portion of it. Actually, sorry, today we did a portion of it 1 through 3. We went through each slide roughly 1 through 3. Tomorrow, guess what we're going to do? Go through the rest of them. And the reason why the intent is important, and again, I'm not going to literally spend all night, every night, watching every one of you go and give me the intent. But the important aspect of knowing why you're showing what you're showing to the customer and being able to actually verbalize it is that You may have heard what I said today, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Well, if it isn't yours, if you don't own that, then it's going to be very difficult. And so that's really the idea, is to be able to take, when we're looking at being able to verbalize the intent of the presentation slide by slide, it really is so that when you're going through, there's a comfort level going, hey, the customer's seeing this, this is what I'm trying to communicate to them. Because here's what's going to happen. Inevitably, you're going to spend a bunch of time on a variety of different things over the next 2 weeks, and you're going to get into the house on week number 3, and you're going to crap your pants because you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm prepared enough to do this. And the reason that we're teaching you these things is because some of you may gravitate to the value proposition. I think, Tommy, you'll probably do a great job because you're real focused on the precision of that. Well, you may not spend enough time on transitions or in step 2 or step 5 or whatever, right? But if you take the time now to actually be able to verbalize the intent behind each slide, then when you get starting to get flustered, you can look at it and go, oh, wait, here's what it is, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And guess what? Even if it isn't, that's a great opportunity for you to take away, and that's why we do at the end of week number 3 that training performance review, because that's the opportunity for us to all sit together and go, hey, remember when you got to that at step number 5, you really kind of struggled? We should probably put that down as something we want to conquer. Let's put that down as a goal. So how are you going to do it? And now you can put together a plan to go, yeah, you know what? Like, I can still sell things and still not be completely adequate in this portion of the presentation or this part of the role, but I want to focus on it and get better at it. And so that's kind of the idea.
But for tonight's task,
Yes.
they just need to know the intent of the slides that we went through today.
If they know the intent behind the slides that we didn't go through today, I will make them
that's bonus
CEO.
points. But yes, the tasks that you were given today is to go over the presentation that we went through today. That is on the Twitch stream if you guys need to go and reference it. We went over a couple different parts. The first part, the script, was about the value proposition.
Yep.
But then the second part was Jared going through, that was when he started at the very beginning of the presentation and went all the way through with the intent of each slide. So that's what you guys need to be focusing on. And this ties into the next question.
Let me pull back just a second, because I don't want to get lost on some of the reasons why we're doing these things. So again, the focus is the intent, but the bigger thing that is you should be kind of pulling out of this is, what is it that I'm listening to versus hearing during our instruction period? It's an important concept to kind of get. Okay, so my point is, what am I listening to versus what am I hearing? And the reason I say that is because we hear a lot of things, but we're not intentional about listening. And in order to have great success in the home, you have to be intentional about listening. So if you were listening to me, you would have heard that I said, hey, you know what? Now we're going to go through we're going to go through all these slides, and I'm going to give you the intent on every single slide. I didn't tell you, hey, there's going to be a task at the end of the day that says, hey, this is the intent. But the reason we created training this way is because that's going to be what it's like in the house. The customer's going to say something, and you may be hearing them, but you're not actually listening. And so you can't recollect and draw the conclusion at the end when you're like, crap, I wish I knew what they would have said back then, because then I could have used that to be able to help them move forward. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's really, when you're going through this, that is one of the big reasons why we have created training the way that we have, is because it's more about not just going back to John yesterday, it's not about just the answers at the end of the test, but it's how do you deal with different types of things in an adverse situation, because that will train you and teach you how to adapt in the home.
All right, so the next question that ties into pretty much what you were just talking about is, what's the difference between intent and memorizing the actual script?
Great.
Those are two different tasks.
What I literally did wrong. I was just telling you, sorry to interrupt. I think you need to stress the importance of learning the script as well as the intent. It's literally what I did.
Yeah, so that's one of the questions on the chat.
That's a great question. I'm going to give it to Jeffrey.
Say that again. The difference. I'm just trying to focus on the difference between learning the script
they
and
have-
intent.
Listen,
Well,
not here.
They have two different tasks for tonight. One
Right.
is to memorize the intent for each of the Prezi slides.
Right.
The other is to memorize the script. What's the difference between intent and script?
Script are just words. The intent is a purpose.
Boom.
There you go.
See, once I hear it,
No, that's exactly it. And that's why, if you've noticed, again, from a structural standpoint, as we're going through this training, we don't just go, and Tommy and I were talking about this earlier, we don't just go and say, hey, here's the script, right? We learned this story, Andrew and I learned this story from somebody a while back about a submarine captain, and the fact that usually a submarine captain has a year to learn their ship. And they know all the ins and outs. And they bark all the orders from up on high going, you do this, you do this, you do this. Well, this captain was given only 6 months to learn it. And so he had to change it. There's no way he could learn an entire submarine in 6 months. And so he had to take and he had to give to the missile guy ownership of, this is your job, you got to know it, because when I need a missile, I just got to say, hey man, missile guy, you got to send it, right? Like I don't need to, I can't figure out.
The most important job.
he's been in combat, you can tell.
Just aim anywhere.
He's a veteran, so.
I know you normally sweep floors, but I need you to hit the whistle button.
Don't worry about where it goes.
Missile guy.
Oh
they
my
call me.
gosh. Oh, that's good stuff. Anyways, now I'm crying. But anyways, you understand the moral of the story. It's really about understanding the intent of something as opposed to, and that is the beginning of mastery. I think so often we look at something and go, I got to learn, all the Wikipedia version of it, right? Like I got to know all the data.
Well, the intent is your belief. Understanding the intent.
The purpose.
Believe it.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
What?
Use the mic.
Intent is understanding the purpose of what you're saying. And you said purpose in words, right? So then why did you tell me to say purpose? I said,
What?
you already said it. But it's for you understanding why you're saying all those words. And
Yeah, if you don't understand the purpose.
You already summed it up.
Yeah, but what I was saying is my point in the training is that we give you the purpose before we give you the vernacular, the words, because then the words actually mean something. So when you're memorizing the intent, it's more about verbalizing the intent, right? So pulling up the slide and being able to go, hey, let me talk through this. What am I trying to say here? And I gave you all the answers, right? It's really about what it is that you retained and what do you need to figure out and wrestle with yourself still. So it's not a hard assignment. It just means that you needed to listen throughout the day, and it needed to mean something to you. And this is one of the big challenges of being a leader, is like being able to take and go, hey, this is a principle, or this is a philosophy, this is a game plan that we have as a company. I want you to go take it, use it, and execute on it. And what you see in so many companies is that there's a disconnect between instruction and execution. And the reason for that is because you don't know the purpose.
There's no intent, right.
There's no intent, right? And so that's why we start there going, hey, give me the intent. So being able to go through that, pulling up the slide and just verbalizing is, again, that's really the exercise. This slide, it means this. And then being able to double check that to what I had said, going, okay, well, yeah, now it aligns with, so I can, now when I see that, I know, you know what, I'm in the lane, okay?
One more thing, if you understand the intent before you learn and memorize the scripting, the way the brain functions is you'll have intonation in your head that you would not have. It'll be the way you present it. You'll learn it and you'll see these words, and as you learn it, the brain interprets that differently if it knew what the intent was, and you'll speak it differently.
Next question.
All right, we are running out of questions, so anyone else who has any, please put them in the feed or in the chat.
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
Much better today.
Yeah, much better today.
'Cause Andrew wrote them
I'll
all.
make one up. Is there a certain speed or way that we should be presenting the script while we're practicing memorizing it? We didn't talk much about like tone or pace or anything, and so is there any recommendations that you have for them as they're memorizing it to kind of start memorizing the pacing of it?
Jeffrey?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, you mentioned, I would practice in front of a mirror and record yourself, and then listen to your own recording. It's going to be more fluid when you learn it. You're going to have some, what I call static sometimes when you're in the home, whether it's kids, interference, right? There's an overall amount of time when you get to be more proficient at this. It's an hour and a half or an hour 40 or whatever it is, naturally, for several reasons, but that's going to happen. For right now, I wouldn't really worry about the time it takes for you to memorize it or the time it takes for you to learn it. The most important step is the one you're on, right? And just focus on that step and learn that step. And I wouldn't be too worried about it. I mean, I understand the concern. You don't want to be too long, too short, but that'll develop a little bit. That's hard to teach. It's more of a developmental thing.
Yeah, I would tell you not to worry about pace, tone, or volume at this point. Because when you have a quick twitch muscle that's been created, then you can refocus it, right? You can work with it. And the way that I would do it at that point is I would go through the script and then I would mark it out as to where I wanted inflection, where I wanted to pause. Like I would do those things. So then I would start practicing the theatrical version. But that's also when you look at our 15-day agenda or calendar, that's at the end. That's at day 10, right? Is to be able to have that pace and change and all that type of stuff. The theatrical approach so that it feels like the value proposition, this is the first time for every customer that you're having this epiphany, right? That it's coming out all organic for that customer. But so here's some of the quick tips that I would give you when it comes to memorizing this thing. The first is to be able to verbalize the intent. That's what we gave you, right?
The pause.
Say what?
The pause. The intent.
Yes.
Open.
That's right. So being able to give the intent through the value proposition, being able to go, this is the 5 concerns, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. This is the apples to apples, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. Then from there, the best way to actually learn things is actually write them out. And so if I was you, I would write them on, Jeff and I were talking about this, I would write them on note cards and I would allocate them. I mean, they're already on your printed version or PDF version, but I would write them out because what you find when you actually study some neuroscience, the best way for your mind to actually have ingrained is actually through your hands of writing. And so that would kind of be the place that I would go next. I think what I've seen a lot of people do over my career in doing this is that they become afraid and their fear ends up driving their behavior. And so they stay looking at that script too much. And so I think the mirror is a great thing to do when it comes to reading off and going, hey, let me read it and try to pull it away. But the crazy awesome part about these phones today, and this is, these are amazing tools that people just waste so much energy on and use them for stupidity. But again, another podcast. But anyways, my point being is that you've got a camera there. You've got a camera and you've got the script over here. What I would do is once I kind of went through it a couple times is I would try to get away from the script and I would record myself and be okay with being self-conscious. Be okay with looking stupid. And I would go through and I would record myself knowing that I don't want to look at that script because I'm going to test my mind. see what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and then by recording that, then I can go ahead and play it back, and I can look at the script, I can pause, and I go, yeah, you know what, I need to spend more time on that. And then the last thing that I would do if I was you is that I would not continue to start from slide number 1 and work my way through. I would not do that, because you're going to be really good at slide number 1 and pretty crappy at slide number whatever it is. And so I would change it up. Maybe I'd start slide 1 this time, but I would want to get into the ability, I'd want to get into the behavior of being able to go, let me pull up vested interest. Hey, you know what? This is vested interest. And that to me would have been the point in which I'm like, oh, you know what? I got this thing down. Because if you can ask me what apples to apples is and I can spout it off, then I'm good. But when you look at the presentation or the value proposition in particular, the most important slides are, number 1, the 5 concerns. Number 2 is the vested interest. And number 3, the 3 top, is the apples to apples. Those would be the ones that I would want to make sure that I hammered home. And why is that? Well, because those are the 5 things that the customer, I need to get commitment on, first of all. I need to make rational sense to them when it comes to the price condition of 30 grand with a contractor versus me. And then I need them to know, hey, you know what? This is a big boy investment. This ain't going to be a couple $100, right? 50, 60 grand, that doesn't mean squat to me. I hope it's 50, 60 grand. Because that means we're going to provide you an amazing freaking kitchen, right? So those are the things. But I've seen so many people in over the years just go, I'm going to start with slide number 1 and just keep working through. And so they end up doing slide 1 like 50 times, and then they spend like 4 times on apples to apples. And they look like crap when it gets to apples to apples. And then the customer's like, okay, you don't even believe what you're saying, right? Because you're like, it's the same as like a expensive kitchen, you know, and it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to buy from you. You're a clown, right? So anyways, good question, Natalie. All right, you guys done with us?
There's one more thing.
Oh, okay, Steven's got one.
Without the opener, when I was talking to Leon and a couple other guys, without the opener, to me, you might as well not even say the script because the opener really ties everything back around when you actually start the script, because you have all your ammo you need. You kind of like know what the customer kind of wants, and you have control of the conversation. If you go off this is more important to me than the script, honestly. That's just my opinion. But this right here is, and it didn't click at first. I swear to God, I was lost. It took me an hour. I'm like going, this don't make sense. This don't make sense. And it just finally I was talking to Leon. I'm like, okay, I understand what this, I can do it. It just clicked in my head. I mean, literally. I told him, I said, I see the light. I did, because I was getting pissed off. I was like, well, I was getting mad. I mean, because I'm one of those guys, I can see something, boom, I see it. And it's just, I see it. It took me a minute. But the process, and I understand why the process it is because this is a big investment for anyone. And if you're not thorough and professional, you're going to get blown out of there. Your closing ratio is going to be 15%. And that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable.
Absolutely. All right, anything else? You got anything to add to that?
No, man, we're good.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about tomorrow. Natalie, what's tomorrow?
Tomorrow we'll start at 9 o'clock. We're going to spend a decent amount of time on learning how to measure a little bit more tomorrow, and we are going to be focusing on the script in order to help you guys be ready for knowing the whole script by what day?
Yeah, so the intent, we're going to spend more time on the intent of the entire presentation, all 10 steps tomorrow. And then we're going to spend a little bit more time, I'll give you guys more time to learn the value proposition script as part of your exercises and things, individual work in the afternoon. So, but yeah, we're going to spend time on measure, so we'll continue working towards our measure objective. And also we're going to introduce pricing tomorrow. So we're going to give you the intent behind the pricing sheet that you will have and see, so that way you're able to start doing some exercises that get you in the routine of going, hey, you know what, I know how to actually not only speak the right things, but I know how to actually price and measure and provide the customer with an opportunity to buy. So anyways, we'll continue to build. But again, now after 2 days, I want you to understand that this is not a here's the information, pass the test. It's much deeper than that. It's learn how to deal with different situations, learn how to intake information, how to make sure that you're able to utilize that for something useful, most importantly, something productive. And that is what we're creating, or what we've created thus far in the first 2 days with the training mechanism of the way that we've done it. And that has everything to do even with the way that we're structuring questions, right? There's a reason why we're giving you a bunch of information for 3 hours, giving you 3 hours to wrestle with it, letting you ask questions, get some feedback, get some, again, you have the ability to ask whatever questions you want. These are the questions that you're choosing, that's fine. But we're going to sit here and answer as much as we can. But there's reasons beyond just going and saying, oh, I got to learn how to sell a kitchen. It's a little bit deeper than that. So tomorrow also Baz will be here. So Baz is one of our Richmond district manager, or he's not one, he's our Richmond district manager, so he will be here. Jeffrey is much more sales oriented, and Baz is although he was a salesman, did a good job, he's much more operational based, so you're going to kind of get to see some of his responses to the way that he approaches the business, and just also some of the things. I think it's a great time for him to show up during measuring and pricing as well, because he's a good guy I don't think he has many mistakes out there. I'll just put it that way. So he runs a tight ship and does a good job. So anyways, it'd be a good opportunity for you guys to pick some of his brain as well. So, and then tomorrow night, Jeffrey leaves. Andrew, are you leaving Wednesday night too? So then you're just stuck with me on Thursday and Friday. So anyways, and Natalie, yes, we'll bring Natalie up here and we'll give her, true story. True story. Natalie actually almost beat all the district managers on a closing competition, so she could definitely teach you a thing or two. So anyways, have a great evening. Appreciate you. Questions are going to continue to come in. If you would like to post them where to be posted. That made no sense, but you guys, I'm out of words. Peace.